everybody. Welcome to Calling Plays here on HBCU Go, episode number 2 of our brand new season. I'm Tolly Carr in Atlanta, joined by James Hadnot as usual. But ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up. Lala is in the house. Ooh, hey. La, la, la. Lawrencia Moten, what's up, girl? How are you?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing excellent.
Absolutely.
We are doing the thing. Glad to have you on board this week. James, good to see you again, brother. Let's start D2 conversation this week. Let's talk about the CIAA, because we got some stuff we got to get into here. The predicted order finish came out at this year's Media Day just a couple of weeks ago, and Virginia Union is picked, the preseason pick, to win it all. At number 2 is Johnson C. Smith, who had the historic title championship last season, followed by Fayetteville State. Virginia State, all right, I need everyone to raise and salute. Number 5, Winston-Salem State is in there. Livingstone College at number 6, followed by ECSU. We got Bowie State, we got Bluefield State, we got Shaw, we got Lincoln. All right, James, if you're Johnson C. Smith, are you like, hey, what's going on here? I thought it was to be the man. You gotta beat the man.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite phrases. It's if you come for the king, you best not miss. And that's what I said before the championship game last year. And Johnson C. Smith didn't. They took down the champs, and they are the reigning champs. And so you are that until you're beaten. So they definitely could have a little bit of a gripe, I guess, with the voters. But when you think about Virginia Union, what they've done the past 3 seasons, they've been in the championship game all 3 years. They have 2 titles. And when they have, they bring back their quarterback in R.J. Rosales, they bring back a running back in Trevon Tinsley and Ramon Brown. And so there is a reason why you could understand why the voters picked them to be first. But if you're Johnson C. Smith, you do feel a little bit hard pressed, because you bring back, 3 wide receivers, your running back, 2 good quarterbacks that you brought in from the transfer portal. So I definitely would have a gripe if I was Johnson C. Smith.
All right, Lala, you're our up north connection. Virginia Union getting a lot of respect. I would say is well-deserved. What did you think about how things played out in the preseason predictions for the CIAA?
Well, I actually feel happy for Virginia Union. I feel like it wasn't necessarily the ending to the season that they would have wanted, but, with Johnson C. Smith being the, defending champions and then becoming number 2, I think Johnson C. Smith specifically should feel a little hungry. We got to think about how voting takes place. If you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's coaches, right, that vote on the predicted order of finish. So it's unbiased, right? These are your colleagues and what they feel and believe. So now I think they should just use that as like fire underneath them to show and prove and actually come out with a win again.
James, unbiased. I think some of these coaches might have a little.
You're gonna vote for your friends? I like to believe that everybody is following the rules, Tolly. I'm sorry. Okay, I think you're supposed to be unbiased.
I think there might be some ops amongst the coaching ranks. I don't know.
Potentially, I definitely think when the consistency of Virginia Union over the past now 4 seasons or so, when they made the playoffs back in 2022, they just lost, I think before they got to the final, to the championship game, and Fayetteville State won that year, and then again they went on this run where they've been in the championship game the last 3 years, and so consistently they've been one of the best teams. And so if you're Johnson C. Smith, you have to show me again. It's probably the adage that the other coaches are saying, right? Because you lose your signal caller in Kelvin Durham, you lose Biggie Proctor, so I don't have any more Notorious B.I.G. references that I can give, in games and everything like that. But you lose DeAndre Proctor, and so you lose 2 of your very important players. But again, when you bring back the starting running back in Bobby Smith, you bring back 3 wide receivers, you bring in a UCLA transfer at the quarterback position, a Central Connecticut State transfer at the quarterback position. I don't know how they aren't the presumptive favorite personally, but again, I didn't get a vote, so we got to talk to somebody.
All right, let's switch over to the SIAC, where they have a story to tell. Here's another Biggie reference for you. All right, Edward Waters predicted number 1. We can't call them the new kid on the block because they used to be in the SIAC way back in the day, but it's been a minute, so they've been back for a few years now. Look, they swept the preseason Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year, they are predicted as the team to beat, followed by Benedict as number 2, Tuskegee, Albany State, Kentucky State, Allen, Miles, Fort Valley State, Savannah State, Clark, Atlanta, and Central State in there as well. Morehouse and Lane bringing up the end of the train there. All right, Lawrencia, what do you think about this? Edward Waters down in Jacksonville. That would be a story for them to come back in the league and within 5 years be this championship team.
Yeah, I think that would be great, not only for them, but for the league as a whole. Them welcoming the league, the SIAC, welcoming them back into the fold and then potentially having such a dominant season would be great. But I really want to shout out Benedict. I think that them being chosen as number 2 is great. I think a lot of people, when Chennis Berry left, they had doubts as to whether or not this program was going to be able to be successful. And I think it speaks to the foundation, not only within like his coaching staff and the players, but the foundation that he was able to bring within the entire program. So shout out to them. I love it.
James, SIAC, what you feeling, brother, over there?
Yeah, I definitely think Edward Waters, bringing back a star running back from last season, had 1,000 yards. And so when you bring back John Terrius Thomas, he averaged 7 yards a carry last year. And so there's a reason why they're picked to finish first, but they're also going to be very hungry. They started the year 4-0 in conference play. Their only loss through their first 5 games, I believe, was to Division I Bethune-Cookman. So, but they didn't finish the season that way that they started. And so they have a lot to prove moving forward. Lawrencia mentioned Benedict. They bring back 3 first-teamers on the offensive line and a second-team running back in the preseason. So they're going to run the ball, and they're going to run it a lot, just like Chennis Berry did when he was there. It's still the same MO, very tough, hard-nosed football team. And so those are the 2 teams to beat. There's a reason why they were picked to finish first and second in the conference.
Well, Lawrencia, you've been on the sidelines covering a lot of these teams, whether it be the CIAA or the SIAC. Do you have a dark horse team that you're going to follow this year that, maybe he's not picked 1 or 2, but you think could maybe surprise some people?
Let's see. I'm going to go with a little bit of a home field advantage for me, Bowie State, potentially. I think that just the area in general, I'm such a big... I truly believe like these football programs and these teams, when you have a city and you have a school and a program and an athletic director and president of the university that supports your team in a great way, like it can propel you. I think a lot of things that we're seeing now when you ask these coaches, like, what's the obstacle that you have to overcome off the field? Sometimes it's getting that support from the institution as a whole. And I think Bowie State has a foundation and that could support them. So, if they have a good season, and we've seen it in the past, Bowie State is one of the most notable Division II programs in all of historically Black colleges and universities in general. So I'm going to go with Bowie State.
Hey, I'm old enough to remember when they were championship contenders.
Yes.
It hasn't been that long ago. So a return for greatness for Bowie State could be in the works. If so, we're going to have to give that credit for Lala for seeing it before it happened. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're talking NFL coaches or NFL players, former players who are now HBCU coaches. How do we feel about this? And we've had some interesting headlines this preseason already. We're going to talk about that next. Stick around. You are watching Callin Plays.
Saturday, the moment is here.
And they already know what's at stake. Finna blow the roof off. Intercepted on the play. 98 yards for a touchdown.
North Carolina Central takes on Texas Southern in the season opener. Saturday, August 29th, 7-6 Central.
It's do or die time. Touchdown.
Only on HBCU Go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Neal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Neal. Welcome to Detroit.
A legendary career, an unforgettable voice.
Ladies and gentlemen, the voice of HBCU football, Mr. Charlie Neal.
Join us for a special broadcast event remembering Charlie Neal. Catch the heartfelt tributes from familiar faces.
Here's this guy who's got this DJ voice, and he's just so slick with it. I want to be like him.
And watch classic games led by Charlie.
Barrows coming up the field. Barrows, look at him go!
Tune in on August 22nd for an all-day marathon highlighting the voice of HBCU sports.
welcome back to Calling Plays, everyone. I'm Tolly Carr along with James Hadnot and Lawrencia Moten. Guys, it's been a trend since Deion Sanders really brought a lot of attention to former NFL players at HBCUs. He wasn't the first. He's not been the last. But for the last 5 years or so, it's really been a hot thing. A lot of eyes this year on Marshall Faulk, who's taken over at Southern University his first year. He's made a couple of headlines in the offseason already. He had one comment where he said, in effect, that he didn't think HBCU players should look at the NFL as like the next level. There was some layers in between that. And with what we've seen with the transfer portal, he's one of these coaches that embraces, hey, you play good here, and, you know, the next step could be a Power 4 program. And with all the talks that we've seen lately, look, some of these schools might be leaving the NCAA. They might become like the minor league to the NFL. He said some more things, but let's start there. What do you take, Lawrencia, ladies first,
Thank you.
Marshall Faulk's attitude towards players, the next level, and kind of his initiation into the HBCU circle?
Well, first off, I think that it's important to note that I don't feel like he said anything wrong. And I think that he's speaking from a place of, you know, he had an amazing NFL career, right? So I think sometimes when we're looking at these coaches, and I think it's awesome that they are becoming head coaches because they're speaking from a place of, I've had an amazing career. I'm just now trying to give back to the youth. I think sometimes we're missing the mark when we're thinking about what a coach is supposed to be. Like, at the end of the day, you're supposed to try to elevate these student athletes. You should not be vicariously trying to play through or live through them, right? So Marshall's speaking from a place of, yes, I want to win, but at the end of the day, I want these student athletes to win. I want them to win, right? I want them to continue to grow. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, the fact that he then went on to talk about, and this is the Rich Eisen show, right? He went on to talk about the fact that they're making a lot of money at these bigger programs, at these FBS, FCS schools, right? And at the end of the day, when you are a student athlete, and I speak as a former student athlete who didn't get to experience NIL, there's still things that you need to take care of, right? There's still, you know, random expenses that you have to deal with. And what a NARP, if you know what a NARP is, when you are able to have a part-time job, maybe you don't have to worry about those things in the same way. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, him wanting these student athletes to make it to the next level. Also, we got to think about the fact that these student athletes making money, because he didn't go on to talk about the fact that he actually felt like it helped the game. NIL is helping the game. Them making money allows some of these kids not to have to choose between continuing their education or, you know, putting food on the table for them and sometimes families back home. So I think it's awesome that he's, you know, championing the idea of these athletes moving on from him. I think it speaks to the authenticity and the type of coach and the type of person that he is. And I love it. I think more coaches should be like that.
Well, Lawrencia, you were clearly ahead of your time, because if you were still an athlete today in college, I mean, all the hair products would be coming to you.
Thank you. I mean, let me touch on that a little bit, Tolly. I literally used to get in trouble. So brands sometimes would send me stuff, right? But it would just be to post it. I remember one time I got like some earrings for free, right? And they sent it to me. And I like took a picture for my story. And I got later on berated by compliance about how that's not allowed. Like, I wasn't even getting any money. Like, I just wanted the earrings, you know? So to think that now, like, these student athletes are putting, essentially giving their lives, because that's what you are doing, right? You're putting your life in the hands of, you know, people that you hope and trust and want to take care of you. Now you're able to take care of yourself a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. I am so for it. So shout out to Marshall for also speaking for these student athletes, because I think that's huge.
Well, James, those are beauty problems that you and I don't have an issue with. I don't think anybody's sending us stuff to model. What did you think about Marshall's take? And he's been a very honest, forthcoming coach. He talked about how he wasn't comfortable yet being a head coach. He was a little bit paranoid, and, you know, maybe some people just want to hear coach speak all the time, but he's just kind of put his true feelings out there. What do you think about his presence so far, James?
I think he's being candid, and it's not a sentiment that other coaches don't have either, right? We talk to coaches all throughout the year, all throughout preseason and things of that nature. And I can speak to Alonzo Hampton who has had, players poached from different places at UAPB, right? His best wide receiver 2 years ago, Giovanni Gibson, who led the entire conference, he went to Oklahoma, right? And so then last year, the best wide receiver in regards to numbers in the SWAC, Jalen Jones, he's at Texas Tech. And so it's a reality that you have to live in, right? We don't want to live in a reality where it's not actually, the truth. And Marshall Faulk is just speaking what is going to happen, whether he says it or not. And so he'd rather be ahead of it and be honest about it than try to play coy and try to keep these guys here. Mickey Joseph, who's the head coach at Grambling, he talked to us this year about how he actually has conversations with his players about the transfer portal, right? If you want to go, let me make sure we're talking with the coaches that you're going to be talking to make sure if you do go, you're getting a good deal. I don't want you to leave me and go be a bench player, because if they're calling you, they either think you can play, or we don't want you to leave here and go be a depth player somewhere else and not get what you're due. And so there's just a real understanding, especially in this space, about how sometimes players don't have the opportunity to get recruited. They might be under-recruited. They come here, they ball out. TC Taylor tells us all the time about how, we know players are going to leave, but we also have to reload and retool, and we have to be good coaches. Alonzo Hampton, getting back to something that he said, is about, I don't run from coaching, I run to coaching. And so my job is to coach these players, develop these players, and give them the best opportunities to succeed, whether that's with me or not. So it shows an unselfishness from Marshall Faulk, and really it's just a sentiment that you have to have when you're coaching FCS, because it's not just a problem that, the schools in the SWAC have. This is FCS in general. And so it's specifically to HBCUs because of the caliber of players that come in and the opportunities that they get. So the bottom line is he's not saying anything that's wrong. He's coming from a very honest place. And all the other coaches have the same mindset. He's just the one that was quoted as saying it on the show.
All right, so if we're talking about money, and let me put on my Walter Cronkites here.
There we go.
Let's think about this. Let's think about homecoming, right? I'm going to pull out my calculator. What they say, James, at GHO this year, there's going to be an expected 200,000 people, right?
Woo, that's a good amount.
200,000 people, which would be like the 7th largest city in the state of North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say they all gave $20. And A&T, thank you for letting me just pick on you, because that 200,000 people is a strong number. And each one gives $20 to this, supposed football collective. Hey, that's $4 million right there. The math don't lie, man. We do have the economic power if we choose to maybe not match the FBS programs, but we could do a little more. So let's,
I like that idea.
Let's be aware of reality, but let's not act like our hands are tied and there's nothing that we can do about it. All right, so that's my 2 cents that somehow ended up to like $20 million. All right, let's talk about our potential players of the year. Since we're in preseason mode, we're going to do that. But first, we're going to take a quick break. You are watching Callin Plays right here on HBCU Go.
Saturday, the moment is here.
And they already know what's at stake. Finna blow the roof off. I'm the loudest. I'm the realest.
Intercepted on the play. 98 yards for a touchdown.
North Carolina Central takes on Texas Southern in the season opener. Saturday, August 29th, 7-6 Central.
It's do or die time.
Touchdown.
Only on HBCU Go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Neal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Neal. Welcome to Detroit.
A legendary career, an unforgettable voice.
Ladies and gentlemen, the voice of HBCU football, Mr. Charlie Neal.
Join us for a special broadcast event remembering Charlie Neal. Catch the heartfelt tributes from familiar faces.
Here's this guy who's got this DJ voice, and he's just so slick with it. I want to be like him.
And watch classic games led by Charlie.
Barrows coming up the field. Barrows, look at him go!
Tune in on August 22nd for an all-day marathon highlighting the voice of HBCU sports.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Calling Plays. We have James Hadnot, who calls plays for a living, and the player who missed her NIL opportunities. You should have just let her have the earrings and more. Lawrencia Moten joining us.
Hey, yeah.
All right, let's. I kind of gave you that delayed, awkward laugh.
That was good. That was good.
All right, let's talk about our potential players of the year, offensively and defensively. We touched on this last week. Guys, let's just be honest. Like, let's not try to act like we live in another world. With a healthy Andrew Body, he is the reigning HBCU National Player of the Year. He's got to be, unless you just have an agenda, he's got to be one of your guys that's on everybody's ballot, right? Mm-hmm. I won't stop you from making a case for Andrew Body on the offensive side, but James, along with Body, who else might you be considering as the Player of the Year caliber personnel here?
Yeah, the person that's on my list is Isaiah Knowles. He's done it at the Division II level 2 times over. He's going to have the same head coach, the same play caller, the same guy who's been leading him since he, transferred as a sophomore. So with Quinn Gray now going to be the coach at FAMU, Knowles followed him from Albany State to FAMU, and so that would be the player to watch for me at the quarterback position to potentially come from behind and maybe take what is presumptive as maybe the Player of the Year award from Andrew Body, just because of his ability as a sophomore. I believe he threw for 32 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions, threw for more than 2,500 yards last year to get the Offensive Player of the Year award again. He had less passing touchdowns but more rushing touchdowns, so he showed his elusiveness as a runner, and so he can really do it all at that position. And with Quinn Gray continue to coaching him and him to continue to get better, I do believe that he has the tools to potentially be the Offensive Player of the Year.
All right, hold your defensive thoughts. Let that simmer a little bit. Let's go over to Lala. Let's stick with offense, Lawrencia.
Okay.
And it's open, whoever, Division I, Division II. I'll leave it up to you. Who are you thinking about?
So that's a great question. If I'm going to go outside of Andrew Body, somebody that I feel like you mentioned that dark horse conversation earlier, somebody that I have my eye on is Jalen Jennings from UAPB. I think you really want to watch Jalen Jennings, and sometimes Player of the Year conversations can get dominated by quarterbacks. So I feel like, he could be that player. He obviously is a preseason first-team All-SWAC at running back, and I think he can make some noise, especially understanding that Andrew Body is coming into the season with a target on his back. Not saying that won't, still make him do great, but, there is sometimes a lot of expectation behind that. So somebody who could also do great things, who people aren't expecting, is Jalen Jennings for me.
Yeah, and when you think about D2 players, I just think they have to be just almost like transcendent to really level out this conversation. And it's kind of the blessing and the curse of HBCUs. We're one big family, but then sometimes we just, bridge D1 and D2 programs together in our mind like it's an equal playing field. So we saw Curtis Allen at Virginia Union last year, which was just a phenomenal talent. It didn't matter what level. But this year, I'm leaning more towards Division I players just being overall the better players. And we didn't say his name last week, and I won't go too far in depth, but Jared Lockhart. I think he's going to be right on the heels of Andrew Body, and we have yet to see what his ceiling is. He's a guy, the quarterback at Jackson State, that I'm really looking forward to seeing the type of year that he has. All right, Mr. Hadnot, let's go back to the defensive side for you, sir. Who are you looking at?
And I will give you my defensive player, Cam Silas from Jackson State, but you reminded me of somebody. You said Jackson State, you said offense, and you cannot talk offense in this league without talking Nate Rimbert. He is a bona fide baller. He makes plays at anytime. He's the one that Jared Lockhart went to late in that game versus Grambling State. And so Nate Rimbert is somebody to watch. That's my dark horse as Player of the Year because just like you said, Lawrencia, the quarterback position is one that we think of really when we start talking about that Player of the Year, that conversation overall. And so Nate Rimbert, watch out for him. But Cam Silas is my defensive pick. Coach T.C. Taylor talks so highly about him and just the mental aspect of the game. He's a leader. He does all the right things, as a tackler, even at his position and his coverage ability. And so Cam Silas is going to be my pick for the Defensive Player of the Year.
La defensively, what are you thinking about this year?
And I could go any conference, right?
Yeah, anywhere you want.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to go with the MEAC. Jordan Franklin from South Carolina State. I'm going to list off some stats because when I was doing some research on him, and I actually did take part in MEAC Media Day, James and I did, 62 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 4 pass breakups. I think for me, he is a logical pick. Just 12 tackles for loss from a linebacker position, 2 interceptions. That impacts the game in a way that we haven't seen in a while. And he's playing on a team that everybody expects to win the conference, right? So I think with that alone and, being coached by one of the best, I love that man. It's just awesome. And I think that he could do a lot of great things because he has that, foundation and he has the people behind him. So I'm going to go with Mr. Franklin.
Hey, when you look at NFL players, defensive players from HBCUs, South Carolina State is a factory for putting defensive players in the NFL. So I have absolutely no argument there. He's one of my favorites as well, Jordan Franklin. All right, look, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Every time we do these shows, we always get this news is kind of developing, and it's not official, but next week we might be talking about a big AD change in the SWAC. Could somebody be leaving one school and going to maybe Texas Southern, maybe? That's kind of percolating out there. We'll get more into it next week as this story continues to develop. All right, for James Hadnot, for Lawrencia Moten, I'm TC here in Atlanta. We'll see you next week on Calling Play.